This is a response to VenomFangX's series Evolution Wants to Make a Monkey Out of You, Part 3. This is the second part of the reply. Let there be dragons. Okay, let's put some context on the issue by having a few excerpts of VenomFang's video.
I believe that dragons are dinosaurs. The Bible mentions dragons dozens of times, and they have lived along with mankind since the beginning of time. They were killed off largely during the worldwide flood, and we have hunted them since then, which is why they're extremely rare nowadays.
First of all, for these comments to make any sense, you will need to have to conveniently suspend knowledge of any scientific data, radiometric data, archaeology, paleontology, and any allied field. Even with those tools suspended, it is my intention to use the plain tool of logic to demonstrate how weak his argument is, and therefore why using science isn't even necessary.
Gilgamesh slayed a dragon.
Gilgamesh's epic did not originally have him slaying a dragon. He slew demons and other fantastical creatures, but the dragon part of the epic was added in by the Greeks. Unsurprisingly, since they were the first cultures with depictions of dragons that were discovered that has actually entered into the mainstream westernized consciousness.
The Chinese zodiac has a dragon on it, but all the other animals are not mythical. So what does that tell us about the dragon?
The zodiac itself is a mythical creation. The presence of the dragon where there were other animals are merely incidental. The dragon has connotations of size and power, which anyone worth their salt would love to have. Also, Chinese dragons are exceedingly large creatures. Have you not seen depictions of them? You mentioned that the larger dinosaurs would not be able to survive in Earth's atmosphere with 21% oxygen, and now you claim that the Chinese have a pantheon of them. Also, Chinese dragons are depicted being able to breathe fire, a process I shall be discussing later, and why I believe these type of creatures are completely unlikely.
King Narmer on this crest here featured dragons.
I draw your attention to giraffes, a land mammal. Please observe their behaviour. As one could argue, the depiction could look like their mating behaviour. These are not exact representations of the creatures, as the humans are also malformed. Hardly a strong case for dragons. Further, the problem with artists is that the depictions are often produced by a third party. The artists are simply not with the person who saw these animals. So the witness to the animal is trying his best to give the instructions to the artist the best he can. At worst, the witness could also embellish the experience to make his excursion more fanciful and amazing to the humdrum of normal life. Without fossil evidence of animals coming from the time in question, this could quite easily be any longer-necked animal.
The famous Greek historian Herodotus spoke about these winged serpents that did not have feathers on their wings.
In the clip, it said, "In such numbers as it is impossible to describe." It further went on to say, shaped like a water snake, and its wings were not feathered but resembled very closely to that of the bat. If there were dinosaurs in such numbers as to be noted by this famous person, then we should have some skeletal or fossil evidence in the area in which she visited. These can be subsequently analysed and carbon dated. So this hasn't happened. Okay? So, could it not be misinterpreted as a bat in the first place? These look similar apart from the beak, from the pictures you've shown, and that could quite easily be embellished with storytelling.
When the ancient ruins of Babylon were discovered, we found dinosaur inscriptions.
Those depictions could be anything, Venom. Certainly not necessarily a dragon. A dragon the size of a lion? We have reptiles that are larger that are living today, and we certainly don't call them dragons.
In 1326 BC, Alexander the Great reported that his soldiers were scared by the great dragons that lived in the caves when they tried to conquer parts of India.
A 7 to 8 foot reptile is referred to as great. They have not met a real dinosaur or dragon then, have they? Great, in human parlance, tends to be giant, not just a couple more feet than normal human height. However, here we have a depiction of an 8-foot one, obviously a fanciful depiction, since this painting appears to be modern. The likely chance would therefore be a large lizard rather than a dinosaur, since the label dragon was used for quite a number of things which we know are not dragons today and are yet still living.
Here's a Roman mosaic from the 2nd century featuring dragons.
The Romans used Greek mythology quite extensively. The dragon we have today stems from the Greek and Roman influences, none of which are viable biological species.
Next, St. George slayed a dragon in 275 AD.
George, and this depiction has him killing a poor innocent Komodo's dragon.
Marco Polo reported in 1271 AD that the Emperor of China was raising dragons to pull his chariots. In 1611, the emperor appointed a post for the royal dragon feeder, and books even tell the Chinese families raising the dragons to use their blood for medicine.
Again, really small reptiles. Not at all the standard fare for dragons and dinosaurs. And 1611 is approaching the time for global trade and communications, yet we see no mention of any trophies of these types of things hanging up in any of the palaces anywhere in the world, do we?
Nearly all great dragons of recent mythology, and I mean recent being within the last 2,000 years, have been fire-breathing entities. The nearest and quickest way for any species on the planet to create fire would be for the dragon to be like a cow. First, to have a quadruple stomach structure in order for bacteria such as Clostridium butyricum, which is a hydrogen-producing bacterium, to work upon the food the dragon eats. After that, the dragon will need to find a free source of platinum metal in order to catalyze the reduction of hydrogen very quickly, so combustion occurs. Once that occurs, then release the stream of hydrogen from the stomachs during this time in order to be breathing fire. Clearly, platinum metal exists as ore, and dragons would need to eat tons and tons of ore in order to get a few grams of the precious metal. Some problems with this is that the chances are that the dragons partaking in this activity will spontaneously explode in mid-air, should they swallow the platinum solution, and secondly, the pyloric sphincter of the stomachs would have to be done up tighter than the baby's arse in order not to have constant leakage of hydrogen from their stomachs. I believe even fish bladders, should a dragon have its equivalent, would not be suitable due to the many things that could go wrong with such a highly volatile gas inside its belly. In other words, the fire-breathing dragons of both European and Chinese cultures would not have been able to evolve, and no other creature that has been studied to date has employed anything remotely similar to that. And 2. Dragons in these mythologies are huge creatures. Classical depictions often have these flying creatures to be as large as the largest dinosaurs, along with a wing size that would put a 747 to shame. The weight of such creatures, despite evolutionary tricks given to the birds, would require a heart the size of an SUV, musculature that would put a blue whale to shame, and the lungs the likes of which have never been considered before. These traits would mean that even if these dragons existed before the oxygen levels fell, at the levels they are today, they would be simply unable to survive in recent history, meaning that the source of these mythologies must have come from a much smaller creature, or something that is not a dinosaur. So we have ruled out the Chinese and various European dragons as being biologically viable creatures, so let's move on to the ones that you call small dinosaurs. Now, with all the species on the Earth, with all the types of animals on the Earth that could not survive, the flood would require not greater than, let's say, 10 supertankers just to house these things. Let's use a conservative estimate of 1 million ton ark, with a tree being just about 15 tons. Noah would need to have felled 67,000 good-sized trees just to make this thing. And didn't God have Noah make the ark on his own? One man could simply not do this on his own, even with a 900-year lifespan. And finally, fossil evidence with radioactive decay. Every fossil of dragon or dinosaurs have ever popped up have been analysed for age. There have been no fossils that have ages younger than about 65-ish million years ago. All we need is one. Just one fossil to come to light that can alter that statement. Yet we still have to find it. We are approaching the end of the video. Clearly, as I have tried to demonstrate, we are all aware that human imagination needs only the smallest of ideas to create fantastical creatures from it. It is hope, at least, that the people find these rebuttals entertaining, as I did in making them. I am under no delusion that VenomFang would change his stance, even if he did watch these videos. And next, debunking the geological evidence of the Great Flood.